So thank you so much for coming to the miracle work today. It's so great to have you here, and thank you for the fresh flowers. They're always sent here. It's amazing, beautiful fresh flowers. So today, the miracle work. Well, yeah, we're actually taking a look at the part of the Urtext manuscripts, and just because it's so fundamental in discovering the way that we think and discovering what is helpful, what is not helpful, or where you're so used to thinking a certain way and that is actually not helpful to you. So it's good to discover that there's an alternative, and not an alternative better way of thinking or something. No, there's an alternative to all of this, and that's what I am inspired to share with you. So today it has everything to do with the body, with the ego and the body relationship, and that is tremendously helpful. Is my experience. Like, it's really helpful to take a good look at what is being shared here in the urtext of A Course in Miracles, because it tells you exactly where it happens, so to speak, where you stay your unconscious is filled with ideas about body in such a way that you will not ask a certain question while at the same time you feel concerned or feel restless or you feel discouraged or you feel all kinds of these kind of feelings. So, and these feelings are, very common in your life, in my life. It's very common, but sometimes you don't know where it comes from and what to do about it. Like, not that we try to fix humanhood or that we try to fix the human way of thinking. No, in fact, this has everything to do with, like I said, the alternative to this. That has nothing to do with what you perceive, has nothing to do with what you think about it. No, it has nothing to do with the way that you're used to perpetuate this idea of yourself. So the alternative is really like, it takes you out of it and not takes you in it or try to solve it in it. No, it takes you out of it. And then it resettles, so to speak. Like there's an also in your three-dimensional experience of yourself, there's a change occurring. What basically changes is the frequency of where you find yourself. Now, that's an interesting idea. So I like to say something about it right now, because it is what you do with your mind, with your new experience, might be the same as what you do with your human experience. And this you don't have to do. And what do I mean with that? Well, here's the crux of transformation, you could say. Like, here's a very fundamental thing happening, and that is this. As soon as we do our exercises well, or are open and receptive, something else, like the alternative, comes to you just like that. Like, it comes out of the blue, but it's an alternative when you experience the release, the happiness that's related to it. It takes you out of it. So that's really what the miracle is then. Now, you settle back into your kind of 3D experience, but the only thing that changes, like really changes, was the place that you find yourself in time. Now, you have of time a certain idea, and that's quite difficult to deal with that. It's like you have an idea that there's a yesterday, a tomorrow, and a today, and that there's a week from now, and there's 2 months from now. But this is not the time that I actually mean. So the time that I'm actually talking about is this, is like your, say, undoing time up to the moment of resurrection, you could say. Like Jesus stands at the end of time, like Christ's mind stands at the end of time. Your Christ mind is at the end of time. Now you, in time, make use of time. It is an illusion, yes, but we're still making use of it, right? We use this time constructively, so by coming to the meeting, doing our exercises and meditating and all this, to use this time constructively to come to the end of time. And so this is the time I'm talking about. So I find myself in a certain point in time. Say, okay, here's Christ realization. I'm finding myself here. Sometimes I catch glimpses of this, and that comes in my awareness, or it is continuously with me. It depends on your experience. But what happens with the miracle then is there's a moment you are taken out of this. Literally, you're experiencing the alternative. You're not fixing the dream. No, you're taken out of the dream for just a moment. And then you seem to be coming back into the same spot where you left, but that is not true. So it's like some time has elapsed, has collapsed into itself. Some time has collapsed. And this is, say, the benefit of allowing this alternative to come into your awareness. Literally, you skip time. You skip a segment of time that you don't have to suffer through. So it's like you end up later in time, closer to the moment of resurrection, closer to the moment of, say, your realization. Realizing that you already realized, realizing that you are a perfect creation of God, realizing that you're complete, whole, and perfect. As an experience of yourself, not just as an idea. So this is essential. So you have your time, but time seen as the idea of how much time before you completely realize your Christ realization or your resurrection, coming into the experience of resurrection with no ideas about it, just the full experience of it. So this is why we use the miracle for. It's like the miracle takes you out, and it can be very easy, just loving your brother as yourself. For a moment, you're taken out of the story that you were in a moment ago, and literally say, go into invisibility for just a moment. You lose yourself, in other words. You lose your ideas about yourself, and you come back in. Now the tendency of the human mind, and this is why I gave this little side detour, the tendency of the human mind now is to say like, well, nothing changed. Nah, it didn't happen. Nothing changed. And you tried to bring yourself back into the same story of, oh yeah, no, I know how my day is. I know what I can expect. I know this, I know that. I even fixed the idea of the future. Yes, I will struggle through that. No. Yeah, everything will stay the same. Yes, my body will stay the same. Why would that change? Oh, no. So it has all kinds of defenses to allowing itself to be new. That's the normal human tendency to conserve instead of to let go. So to conserve means then in this sense, like to try to hold on to it, try to not let it be new. And this is of course not what we want. So it's great to be aware of the tendency of your mind to do so. And you're thinking, no, this miracle happened. No, the release that you just experienced and that took you out for a moment, out of your own story, the release that you experienced placed you in a different time, placed you literally like further in time, closer to the end of time. So that could be a skip of 20 years of human programming that you don't have to suffer through. It can be 2,000 years. It can be 2 million years. Who knows? It's like, allow this moment to be completely new. Allow this to be new continuously. Like that becomes your mantra, so to speak. Let it be new. This moment be new. Let it be new. So you had a release. You felt suddenly, I lose control of my emotions, or I feel touched, by the divine. I feel touched by the divine. So that changed everything. Nothing will be the same again. So don't make it the same again. Okay, so I made my point here. So I want to be as clear as possible. That's why I do it a bit like, maybe almost like a school teacher, but you got to forgive me for that. Allow that to be new. This is a new school teacher. Has nothing to do with your old ideas. So now, the next, bringing you to my smart board. Since we're in school, I'm gonna present my smart board with some visuals that are actually helping us today, and that will bring some ideas to our awareness that have everything to do with, where do I find my safety? Where is my protection? These are the fundamental questions, in fact, that are being asked and answered. Where do I go for my protection? Now, here's the split between the ego, so to speak, your human sense, and your divine sense, or your Holy Spirit sense of where is my help, where is my protection. The body ego illusion. So of course you want to be an expert in it. Like you need to know these things in a certain sense. Like if you have a full-blown Christ experience all the time, you can skip this. In case you might sometimes be anxious, depressed, wondering what the hell is going on, wondering what the hell is going on with my body, having pain, upset, just like these human experiences, which is perfectly all right. If you recognize that, just stay right here. Don't go anywhere. Because here what is being presented is, in fact, like I said in the beginning too, is like, in fact, this is going to tell you exactly where it happens, where the confusion happens, and how well this confusion is covered. So we're here discovering, literally taking a layer off of it. So something is being brought into your awareness, and that needs to be in your awareness in order to see what is going on. So there's some basics that I'm sharing with you. The ego is further off balance. Oh wait, I don't think I got the right start. Yeah, no, I got to start right here, sorry. All things, and you can agree with that, I know for sure. All things work together for good. All things work together for good. That sounds very acceptable. Like if there's such thing as a wholeness, everything works together as good. In Romans 8, you read it too. It's like in the New Testament, the Bible, New Testament, Romans 8. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And this is, of course, always an interesting idea. So the one part is this. So all things work together for good to those who love God. So loving God is a matter of consciousness, is a matter of awareness, right? So that is an experience. You love God. You are actually communicating with God. This is, say, the door. This is the door which opens for you to see that all things work together for good. Now then, the second part of the sentence is, to those who are called according to his purpose. Now, that's also an interesting idea. Those who are called. So, who are called? Are we like a special group of people that are called? Are we the ones that are called? Well, yes and no. Yes, you are called. Yes, everyone is called. Like all are called. And somewhere in the urtext it says, but few have answered. So this is your answer to the calling. That's why you're here. That's why you're listening. Like, okay, you love God. You are called like everyone else, but the difference is that you are answering. You're actually answering to the call. So here we continue. All things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment. There are no exceptions to this. So if you, that's always so funny to see this. It's like all things work together for good. So in case you don't recognize this fully and think that there are exceptions to this, like it says here too, if you think there's an exception to this, all things work together for good, then you're following your ego judgment on the situation. An ego judgment fundamentally says, I'm the God here. I rule, and yeah, I'm almighty. So give me all your attention. In fact, that's what the ego says. But it's funny. So you can actually see then for yourself, when I think, and who doesn't? Like when I think that not all things are working for the good, then I'm actually trusting my ego guidance. So it's good to realize that, right? Because just being honest is like, yeah, sometimes I think it should look different, right? Yeah. So you follow in that moment, you follow ego guidance. I think there shouldn't be like this. There shouldn't be a war. There shouldn't be this or that. There shouldn't be that much money in my bank account. There should not be this happening with my body. No, that has nothing to do with it. All of it has nothing to do with it, with your ideas. All things work together for good. And does it mean that you can, say, justify anything that you see? No, not at all. So that's another part of it. It's not about justifying what is happening and using it against yourself to prove to yourself that all things are working out for the good. No, it says here, like, when you love God, you see that everything works as one, in fact, because everything is one. That does not mean attack your brother. That does not mean separating. That does not mean anything of these things, like with a nature of differentiation. No, of course not. God doesn't know anything about that. So it skips, in fact, the five senses. It brings you back to your wholeness. That is what this is about. Now we read again. Let's check it out. All things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment. Control is a central factor in what the ego permits into consciousness. Well, the control factor is interesting too, so we're going to take another look at that later. Control is a central factor in what the ego permits into consciousness, and one to which it devotes its maximum vigilance. So it needs to be in control, right? And that has a very specific reason for that. And this is not the way a balanced mind holds together, like a balanced open mind. Its control is unconscious. It doesn't control consciously. Okay, that comes back later too. It obliterates the question from the mind's awareness. So once unconscious, it can and does produce uneasiness, but it cannot be answered because it cannot be asked. So where we're talking about? We're talking here about protection. This is the belief that sponsors eagerly. Yet the ego hates the body. We're talking about the body. The ego hates the body because it does not accept the idea that the body is good enough as its home. So the ego identifies with the body completely, right? It insists on the body being the identification of the ego. Like, you bring this back to yourself. This is about you recognizing yourself as a body. And who does not do that? So you recognize yourself as a body. And now there's an uneasiness that is connected to that idea, because it appears to be vulnerable, and it appears to be temporal, it appears to be separate, right? All these attributes it has. Like, the body seems to be separate, and the body seems to be vulnerable. The body seems very much so to be temporal. And here's the identification then. So then where can I go for protection? Is what you ask yourself. Where do I go for protection? To which the ego replies, turn to me. And the mind, and not without cause, reminds the ego that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body, so there's no point in turning to it for protection. It is it. The ego has no real answer to this because there isn't any. Okay, in one sense, the ego's fear of the idea of God is at least logical, because this idea does dispel it. Fear of dissolution from the higher source then makes some sense in ego terms. But fear of the body, which the ego identifies so closely, is more blatantly senseless. The body is the ego's home by its own election. It is the only identification with which it feels safe, because the body's vulnerability is its own best argument that you cannot be of God. To give you clarity here, it's like you identify yourself as a human with your body, and you feel vulnerable in this, like just saying. You see, you cannot even believe that, say, this character in this world, that everything is, say, happening for the good, like that all things work together for good, and that it's a perfect story altogether. You don't see that as a human being. So the other part is, you see the temporalness, like as an ego mind, you see the temporalness of you as proof that God is separate. Like, you use it, in fact. You use it to prove to yourself, or who else, to prove to yourself that you're separate. So now, that idea, say, you could say like that idea of an ego-body identification has become very strong. Like, look at for just a moment at the idea of hospitals. Look at all the trouble and pain and agony that is caused by an idea that you are this body, and that this body is not working well, that something has gone wrong with it, that it's absolutely, say, fear evoking. That is that there's a tremendous lot of anxiety being stirred up by the misidentification, in fact. So you all recognize this, and you can definitely confirm this to me, that you have had those experiences up to now, of course, because now you start to recognize something else, and that is this. Like, if I've used this thing, so to speak, to separate myself off from God, uh, I prove to myself it's vulnerable. So you can say, like, the mind is doing its work, it's literally projecting on the body that it doesn't function well. And without a real solution, where can I go for my protection? The ego says here, go to the body because that's the only thing you have. That's why you have to protect yourself. Now here is something fundamentally happening with an idea of awakening, with an idea of, say, an overwhelming love of God. And you being in this transformative process, like in your awakening process, might experience some fear when you think about the love of God. Because what will it do? Well, you know this now from the things that we have read and that you have heard. Like, apparently I'm not this thing. I'm actually not a body. Like, this is actually not me. Even though I use it, or like I can use it as an instrument in some way, not really clear how, but this is what I thought I was, but I'm not sure what I am. This is a very normal state of a human being in transition, you could say. It's a very normal state. So your body's doing all kinds of things. Maybe that's even the reason why you started the reading A Course in Miracles, or going to, say, transformative teachers who actually teach transformation, you could say. Like, that would be a reason. Seeing that this is not trustworthy at all in terms of protection, right? It makes sense. It makes total sense. It's very vulnerable in the human eye of things. Very vulnerable. So now, in fact, you see that you're not even asking, where can I go for my protection? Up to a certain point, when the pain gets intense enough, when the suffering is increasing, or when you suddenly see, like, this doesn't make any sense, then you start to ask a question: where can I go for my protection? Which is a great question. Like, where am I safe? Where's my safety? Where is my safety? Where am I looking for my safety? Now, to be, say, to come to a new awareness, like to come to the alternative of you, of the experience of you, not being this, means that something else is going to occur. Now, since you are so accustomed to the idea of devastation, of loss, of all of this, it might appear that you're temporarily in fear. Because if I'm not this, what is left of me? It's like obliteration. Like you're afraid to lose everything. When you come into, like, the alternative experience of the miracle, of a revelation, of the love of God, the direct communication with God, you're actually afraid of it, to let that happen. And that is perfectly normal. It's not weird or anything. It's not that you're the exception where that happens. No, this is an essential part. So you build up an identity, and now this identity is being undone. Because you don't need to build up an identity, you already have one. And this is your security. This is your safe spot, you could say. This is your safe space in the whole universe, and that is your true identity. Now you come into the practice of coming into, say, experiences of the alternative, for moments you release your self-identity and you feel so good. It's like, oh, so great to just let this go, to in fact let this fall apart. I was so hard trying to hold it together, but now I'm letting it fall apart. And what can happen now? The thing that can happen now is that there's more space in my awareness, in my consciousness, for the light to enter in. So, and they will confirm to you the safety and the protection that you were looking for. Now, where do I find that exactly? Now, here's an interesting thing that has everything to do with the healing, coming to the place where actually the light is. Where would you go to experience light? Now, this is exactly in the places where you feel that you don't want to go. So that's why it can be a bit scary, it's like, why would I go to the place where I feel the most intense pain? Well, to see that that isn't it, that behind all of that is the light that you're looking for, is the comfort and the safety that you're looking for. So this is huge, this is huge in your experience. So in fact it is for your adventurous mind, it is a great challenge. So you want to discover, where that is. And this is the point exactly where we meet each other. It's like we're going to discover where actually your salvation is, or your freedom, or where your safety is. That is where we meet in our journey towards the end of time. More and more experiences where we are lifted out of this, where you release your humanhood, your human ideas, and cry them out, laugh them out, breathe them out, in order to allow a whole different receptivity to come to us, and alertness, and expectancy too. It's like my safety is just beyond that. I'm looking at the pain and I'm stopping right there, make it a barricade for myself. Now I go and look right through it to discover something new, and I want to experience that. So it's an adventure. It's really something else. The body is the ego's home by its own election. It is the only identification with which it feels safe, because the body's vulnerability is its best own argument that you cannot be of God, being temporal idea. Yeah. Okay, so a crucial source of the ego's off-balance state is its lack of discrimination between impulses from God and from the body. Like it confuses, in fact, impulses from God and from the body. Any thought system which makes this confusion must be insane. Yet this demented state is essential to the ego, which judges only in terms of threat and non-threat to itself. So that's good to know. So what did we just hear? So the ego uses everything. It wants to be in control. It uses everything. Like, is it a threat to me or not? I don't feel well reading this. I don't feel well thinking about this. I don't feel well. It wants to control. It wants to keep yourself from the idea of questioning the reality, or the state of insanity, in fact, that the ego idea represents, that your humanhood represents. Like, the thing you don't really like to do as a human mind is questioning what is going on. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? What actually is this idea of myself? When will when this ends, what happens? So it's like, these are the fundamental questions of your humanhood. And if you think that you like to talk about it as a human being, I think you're going to be surprised. So opening anything up that disturbs, in fact, the human way of perpetuating the past into the future, if you take that away temporarily, or say try to take that away, that idea, for just a moment, it brings up the deepest possessiveness to holding on to the idea. It's like you protect it with your life, if you could, which it can't, but anyway. So that's so funny to see that. So you could say like that, if the human way of being is being disturbed just a tiny little bit, it would be totally unacceptable. It would be top controversial. So this is where you deal with. So it's like, how are you going to do that? I'm having these beautiful moments, and I deal with a so-called insane world, which represents my own insane ideas. Because I'm not going to differentiate between the world and my own ideas. Like, I know where they come from. They start right here. Like, I take responsibility for what I see. I take responsibility for it. But I recognize too the insanity of it. So now I stop right here. In order to try to mingle the two, try to bring them together, trying to make a mix that could actually work, save yourself the trouble, save yourself the energy to do so. It has no relationship. So you don't have to do that. So now what do you do then? Since you're in the middle of the conflict. Well, here the answer is always very simple. Where do you go for your protection, for your safety, for your sense of safety? Where do you go? You try to find it here in your three-dimensional idea of yourself. You're going to look for it for a long time and you will not find it. You go within and go to the places that you actually don't want to go, and you step right into your safety and security, and the light and the love and the extension and the say, yes, I'm home feeling. You know, that is the difference. So, and that is the way to go, you could say. So it's always, the solution is never here. The solution, you trying to do something here, is just another attempt to control what's going on. And you know this. You know when you're doing it that it's not working. So I discourage you to do so. And just to let it fall apart, to let it collapse. And see what comes to you in this space that is created by this collapse, by giving up the control that you don't have, by giving up ideas that you hold on to for no reason, by pain that you perpetuate for no reason, by anxiety that you keep bringing back into your awareness for no reason, by sadness and absolute depression that you bring into your awareness and have been doing that for a long time. It doesn't need to happen anymore. There's no solution to this, what you are perceiving. There's no solution to it here. No, it is either the total solution of you recognizing who you are, or you gonna like walk around in your mind, circling tracks of mind, and doing the same thing, perpetuating it in the future, trying to hope for a better future, all this stuff that you have been doing for centuries, for lifetimes. So here the alternative becomes very apparent, and you see that there's a real purity and brightness related to the idea that you don't have to find the solution here, that the alternative is free of all this that you have brought into your world. Imagine, and this you can do, like imagine that you don't have your five senses to work with. All the memories that are related to your five senses you can let go of. See, then there's not much left, is there? Like all your memories are related to your senses, and these senses didn't make any sense. It didn't tell you anything about who you were. So here's your healing then. In the purity of the light of your true being, it's happening right now. It's happening here. All that is dissolves like as snow, as the sunlight would melt the snow. Like it evaporates. And it has no consistency in the first place. But what stays is your sense of safety, and it becomes deeper and deeper in experience to you, and that's exactly the offering here, what's being shared. Okay, let's take a look at this. The ego is further off balance by keeping its primary motivation unconscious. Oh yeah, so in fact it says like it does not bring to your awareness what it is actually doing. Like that's, I would say like that's the reason too that why a human being, for instance, and we're talking here about human beings as if it's some kind of species on a planet. Like no, that's my ego thinking. In my ego thinking, I don't want to question why am I here? What's going on? How did I get here? What am I doing here? What is the purpose of living? Like as a human being, you basically say like, you're depressed if you ask all these questions. You know there's no answer to it. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is not popular to do this, to shake this up, in fact. You feel like the fundamentals of the ego control is to let's not talk about this. Let's just not talk about this. Let's keep it under the carpet. Like, let's not talk about this. Nobody needs to know. No, you just have a good time. Just think about yourself. Take your time for yourself. This is, you trying to keep it all under control. You rather hide than let it come up to your awareness and have it be a total disruption of your, idea of yourself. You don't like to be disrupted as a human being. So luckily we are practicing this a little bit by having controversial ideas coming to us in which you recognize the truth of it. Like, yeah, I really cannot deny that this is actually holding the truth. Like all things work together for the good. Paul to the Romans in Romans 8 didn't write that by accident. No, he was like a great fighter in a religious war, and he was killing Christians on a daily basis. This guy is in the middle of the marketplace, living out his anger, his hatred against the Christians. Like he's really going for it. And suddenly something happens to him in which he was knocked off a horse. Like he had an insertion of light, of divine light coming into his mind that changed him for good. And he could not kill anyone anymore. He could not even feel the hatred anymore. He was just completely changed. He died right there and resurrected as Paul that we know him. Like and this is what I'm talking about. It's like it doesn't need to happen this way, but it is beautiful to see that somebody who had a certain history, you could say, suddenly undergoes a change in which he starts to teach the truth and become this incredible light beacon in which he expresses the truth and recognizes that all, in his love for God, that all things are working for the good. Like there's such an incredible perfection going on. That was my experience too when I got knocked off my horse. My experience was I could literally hear the perfection, the synchronicity of the whole universe for just a blink of a second. Like I heard the perfection of the synchronicity. All things work together exactly right. And I have no idea what that is, but I can hear it. I could hear it. So it's like that is what we're talking about. Like that's where that happens. So these ideas are, it's like these ideas that come to us now are helping you to see, oh yeah, there's an alternative to human thinking. Believe me. Well, in fact, there's no solution for this place that I find myself in at times. There's no solution for it. So I'm not going to find it either here. I'm going to go to the real alternative. So you could say like the constant state that is with me all the time. A state of complete love, extension, and reality. All right, so I think we're doing pretty good. Yeah, I was expecting that a little bit. So I'm going to read a miracle prayer. Like it's so perfectly given to us in this moment, just right. It's like so perfect. I will receive whatever I request. No one deserves pain, but he can think that pain is pleasure. No one would avoid his happiness, but he can think that joy is painful, threatening and dangerous. Everyone will receive what he requests, but he can be confused indeed about the things he wants, the state he would attain. What can he then request when he would want when he receives it? I'll repeat that one more time. What can he then request that he would want when he receives it? He has asked for what will frighten him and bring him suffering. So now what to do? Let us resolve today to ask for what we really want. We're going to ask for what we really want. And only this, that we may spend this day in fearlessness, without confusing pain with joy or fear with love. Father, here's the prayer. Father, this is your day. It is a day in which I would do nothing by myself, but hear your voice in everything I do, requesting only what you offer me, accepting only thoughts you share with me. Father, this is your day. It is the day in which I would do nothing by myself, but hear your voice. So I'm going to listen. Listen in everything that I do. I want to hear your voice in everything I do, requesting only that what you offer me, accepting only thoughts you share with me. I will receive whatever I request. All right. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. Thank you.